Well, today we will be studying the antiarrhythmic drugs. We have already discussed about arrhythmias, their genesis, types of arrhythmias, and all this thing according to the action potential. The objectives of today's class are revising the action potential because they are important to understand the action of various drugs. Then the classification of antiarrhythmic drugs, the mechanism of action of these with especially the effects on the action potential, the comparison between the different groups, their indications, and summarization in the end. The pharmacotherapy of arrhythmias. The drugs used to treat the cardiac arrhythmias have been used for many years, like quinidine and digitalis, since early 1900s. Most of these agents approved for use today have only been available for a decade or less than that. The research has provided much information regarding the cellular mechanisms of arrhythmias and the actions of some of the antiarrhythmic drugs. This is a few slides for the revision. The physiology of the cardiac cell, that is the resting intracellular voltage of the myocardial cells, is negative 90 millivolts, and in the resting state the potassium is intracellular, sodium is extracellular, and a rapid influx of sodium causes the phase 0 or rapid depolarization. The action potential occurs when sodium enters and sets up a depolarizing current. We have discussed a rapid influx of sodium would cause the phase 0 of the action potential, which is due to the depolarization. The revision of phases of action potential of the cardiac cells, though we have discussed them in the last class also, but as they are important, so we are discussing them again. In the phase 0, there is rapid influx of the sodium ions. This is a phase of rapid depolarization also. In phase 1, there is partial repolarization. In it, what happens is the inward sodium current is now deactivated and there is outflow of potassium. In the phase 2, this is also the plateau phase. Now there is slow inward calcium current. So this is the phase where calcium channel blockers would be effective. In the phase 3, this is the phase of repolarization. This is the phase of repolarization, that is the calcium current is inactivated and now there is outflow of potassium, just like as in phase 1 there is outflow of potassium. In the phase 4, this is also called the pacemaker potential or autorhythmicity, that is slow sodium inflow, slowing up of the potassium outflow. A balance is created here between the sodium and the potassium ions. The refractory period, this is between the phase 1 and phase 3. This is the refractory period during which the myocardial cells rests and there is no generation of the next action potential normally. All the antiarrhythmic drugs, they act by altering the ion fluxes within the excitable tissues in the myocardium directly or indirectly. The three ions, they are of primary importance, as we have already discussed. They are sodium, potassium, and the calcium. The antiarrhythmic drugs, they can be classified by their ability to directly or indirectly block flux of one or more of these ions across the membranes of the excitable cardiac muscle cells. This is important to remember. That is the pro-arrhythmic potential of the antiarrhythmic drugs. That is, majority of the antiarrhythmic drugs, they have narrow margin of safety. They are many of the antiarrhythmic drugs, they are also pro-arrhythmic in nature, that is, they can produce arrhythmia also. Only beta blockers and amiodarone, they have been found to decrease the cardiac mortality in the long term. But when used for long term, we have to be careful of the side effects of these drugs also. Amiodarone, it contains an iodine moiety in its chemical structure. Therefore, there is a propensity for production of thyroid disease also. Similarly, for beta blockers also, we have to check their safety profile also, especially as they have to be used on long term for years together. The most common classification of antiarrhythmic drugs is given by Vaughan-Williams. The drugs, they are classified into 4 classes. First, the class 1, they block the sodium channels. They are further divided into class 1A, B and C. 1A, like quinidine, they increase the action potential. 1B, like lignocaine, also called lidocaine, they decrease the action potential. 1C, like flecainide, they have equivocal effect on action potential, and they mainly act on phase 0 when there is rapid influx of sodium. Class 2, they are the beta blockers like atenolol. They act on phase 4. Class 3 are the potassium channel blockers like amiodarone. They prolong the action potential and also affect the refractory period. That is, they are useful in suppressing the re-entrant rhythms. So they are effective on phase 1 and phase 3 of the action potential. The class 4, they are the calcium channel blockers like verapamil. They impair the impulse propagation in the nodal and the damaged areas. If you remember, there is the movement of calcium during the plateau phase, that is the phase 2. So these drugs, they are effective in phase 2, calcium channel blockers. The class 1A agents, they also have class 3 properties. Propranolol, in addition to being class 2, it also has action on class 1 like actions as well. Sotalol, a beta blocker, has both class 2 and class 3 actions also in addition to their own actions. Now coming to the classes one by one. Class 1, the sodium channel blockers. These drugs, they bind to the sodium channels and prevent the conduction of ions. They have local anesthetic and membrane stabilizing effect also. They bind preferentially to the open channel state, that is use dependence. This thing is important. The more the channel is in use, more the drug is bound. So they are effective on when the channels, they are open. The drugs are maximally effective when the sodium channel are in the open state. The other 2 stages are the resting stage and the refractory stage. They are effective in open state only. They are useful in conditions where channels open frequently. This can be depicted in another way, that is, the cardiac sodium channels, they have 3 phases: the resting phase, the activated phase and the inactivated phase. So as you can see from the action potential, the maximum influx is in the 0 phase, that is, when the sodium channels are open, there is rapid influx of sodium. So this is when the sodium channel blockers, they are the most effective. The class 1A drugs, they are quinidine-like drugs. Upon the action potential, they have minimal effect on, if they prolong the action potential. You can see that the white one when there is no drug, the yellow one when the class 1A drug like quinidine is used. The 0 phase depolarization, that is slowed down, and you can see its effect over here, and the refractory period, that is prolonged. The effective refractory period is also prolonged because of the slow conduction of the ions. Class 1A drugs, they are high potency drugs as sodium channel blockers. They prolong the QRS interval on ECG. They usually prolong the repolarization, that is, they prolong the QT interval through the blockade of the potassium channels also. They increase the fibrillation threshold in atria and ventricles, and they can decrease or even block the AV node conduction. Clinically, the drugs are used mainly to treat the atrial tachycardia and atrial fibrillation, ventricular arrhythmias also. They are also used to prevent the paroxysmal atrial fibrillation due to the vagal overactivity. These drugs, they have pro-arrhythmic effects also, that is, they themselves also produce arrhythmias like Torsades de Pointes. They have negative inotropic effect, and they also have infranodal conduction blocks. So these drugs, they themselves can cause arrhythmias. Now coming to class 1B, they have lowest potency as sodium channel blockers among the class 1 antiarrhythmic drugs. They produce little change in action potential duration, that is, they do not have effect on QRS interval in the normal tissue. There is minimal phase 0 depression and slows the conduction also, but lesser so than class 1A drugs. They shorten the repolarization also, that is, they decrease the QT interval. Here we can see the minimal effect on phase 0 as compared to 1A, you can compare it, and they decrease the duration of the action potential. The effective refractory period is comparatively shortened. These drugs, they are used to treat and prevent the ventricular tachycardia and fibrillation after myocardial infarction or due to digoxin toxicity. Among these drugs, tokainide, it has a longer duration of action, and lignocaine or lidocaine, it is used intravenously. So you need a hospital setting to use this drug. Now coming to class 1C, they are the most potent sodium channels. They prolong the QRS interval. They have little effect on repolarization, that is, there is no effect on the QT interval. They have marked phase 0 depression. There is no effect on repolarization. The refractory period of AV node is increased. These drugs associate and dissociate slowly, and there is a general reduction in the excitability of the cardiac myocytes. There is no propensity for the damaged myocardium, so we can understand it from the action potential. So the phase 0, that is markedly depressed, there is no effect or little effect on the action potential. There is markedly slow conduction in the myocardial tissue. They only have minor effects on duration of action potential and refractoriness, which we can clearly see from this action potential. They tend to reduce the automaticity by increasing the threshold potential rather than decreasing the slope of the phase 4 depolarization. Here you can see there is not much effect on the phase 4 spontaneous depolarization. Now the clinical uses of class 1C, they are used for life-threatening ventricular fibrillation since they have high affinity for sodium channels. They also prevent the paroxysmal atrial fibrillation. Also, they are effective in recurrent arrhythmias associated with abnormal conducting pathways, that is WPW syndrome. But you have to be careful about their pro-arrhythmic potential. Now, in this slide, we can compare the effect on the ventricular action potential between these three, 1A, 1B and 1C class. The black action potential is without the drug, the colored one is with the drug. Here in this one you can see with the action of class 1A. On ECG we can see an increase in duration of QRS and QT intervals. They have effect on the phase 0 which is in between that of class 1b and class 1c. The effect on refractory period is maximum with class 1a, slightly decreased with 1b, and no effect with class 1c. The effect on ECG with class 1b is QT interval is decreased, and with 1c the QRS interval is prolonged. So on phase 0, minimal effect with 1b, then comes effect with the 1a group of drugs, and the maximum effect on with class 1c. So class 1c, they have more potent than class 1a and b on sodium channel. Same thing I am reiterating with in another way. Here the black one represents the normal action potential, the blue one 1b class, red 1a, green 1c, and you can see the effect on phase 0 and the effect on refractory period and on repolarization phase. Class 1a, like quinidine, they have moderate sodium channel blockade. As you can see, the effect is in between that of class 1b and 1c. Class 1b, like lidocaine, or that is lignocaine, they have a weak sodium channel blockade effect, and the effective refractory period is decreased with 1b group of drugs. 1c, like flecainide, they have strong sodium channel blockade and comparatively no effect on effective refractory period. So it is clear by comparing all these three in a single diagram. So when you memorize these things, it is better to draw the action potential and see the effects of the drugs on action potential. This is an easier way to understand the concepts underlying the mechanism of action of class 1A, B and C group of drugs. Now coming to class 2, that is beta blockers atenolol, and we studied that it has effect on phase 0 of the action potential. These drugs, they act indirectly on the electrophysiological parameters by blocking the beta receptors, by slowing the sinus rhythm and prolonging the PR interval. They do not have effect on QRS interval or QT intervals. They block the beta 1 receptors in heart and decrease the heart rate. The adrenaline, it causes ventricular extrasystole and fibrillation by increasing the slope of phase 4 depolarization, and also by increasing the spontaneous firing of SA node. The AV node conduction also requires the sympathetic activity. So these effects of adrenaline are inhibited by the beta blockers. These drugs, they reduce the mortality after an incidence of myocardial infarction. They prevent the arrhythmias associated with increased sympathetic activity in sinus bradycardia, AV block, and depression of LV function. All these are adrenergic dependent, and the class 2, that is beta blockers, are useful in these. Esmolol drug, it has the least duration of action. So now coming to the class 3, potassium channel blockers, that is imiodaron-like. They prolong the action potential and the refractory period, and they suppress the re-entrant rhythms. So they are effective on phase 1 and phase 3, that is when there is potassium outflow in these two phases, that is the repolarization phases. They prolong the repolarization, that is they increase the refractoriness by blocking the outward potassium conductance, that is they prolong the QT interval, with typically little effect on rate of depolarization, that is they do not have effect on QRS interval. They prolong the cardiac action potential by increasing the refractory period. They also have interactions with the autonomic nervous system. The potassium channel blockers, we can see by blocking the potassium channels, the effective refractory period is increased from this point to this point. So there is delayed repolarization by the potassium channel blockers. The class 3 effects on re-entry. Here you can see there is sustained ventricular tachycardia, and when we give class 3 drugs, sinus rhythm is achieved by the effective refractory period, which is increased. This is the re-entrant circuit. We already studied it in the last class. These are the Purkinje fibers. This is the ventricular wall, and when there is subendocardial ischemia, a re-entrant circuit is established. So the class 3 drug effects, they increase the action potential duration in normal tissues, breaking the re-entrant circuit. So they are effective in re-entrant circuits, and this is achieved by prolonging the effective refractory period. Clinically, Bretaluum is only used for life-threatening ventricular arrhythmias. Amiodarone, this is useful for tachycardia associated with WPW syndrome in both the supraventricular and ventricular arrhythmias. Sotalol, it combines both class 3 and class 2 actions, useful for paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, supraventricular ectopics, ventricular tachycardia. Also useful for sinus bradycardia and torsades de pointes. So amiodarone is useful drug, commonly used, as is sotalol. But we have to see upon the long term. Whenever a drug is used over years together or months together, we have to have a careful look at their side effect profile also. Amiodarone, this is an older drug. A newer drug, dronedarone. So the dronedarone, it doesn't contain any iodine atoms, but amiodarone it contains. So amiodarone can have the thyroid side effects. In addition, the pulmonary side effects can also occur with amiodarone, which are not seen with dronedarone. So this is a safer option for the lungs diseases and in the thyroid diseases. The half-life of dronedarone is 1 to 2 days, and amiodarone, it has quite a long half-life of months together. So dronedarone, it is therapeutically used for atrial fibrillation. Amiodarone also for atrial fibrillation, in addition ventricular fibrillation and ventricular tachycardia. Vernaculant, this drug, it has mixed sodium and potassium channel blocker. It is comparatively an atrial selective compound. There is faster association and dissociation with sodium channels, hence it is more effective in rapidly firing myocytes. Its efficacy is similar to that of ibutylide. This drug significantly reduces the risk of torsades de pointes, the proarrhythmic effect of some drugs. It is used in acute chemical cardioversion of atrial fibrillation, but not the atrial flutter. Vernaculant is contraindicated in patients of advanced congestive heart failure and recent myocardial infarction. Now we come to the class 4, that is calcium channel blockers like verapamil. So class 4, calcium channel ion movement, was seen in phase 2, that is the plateau phase of the action potential. So these drugs, they are effective on this plateau phase. They impair the impulse propagation in nodal and damaged areas. Class 4 drugs, they are relatively selective for AV nodal L-type calcium channel blockers in the plasma membrane. They reduce the slow inward current and the force of contraction. They also slow the conduction of AV node due to calcium channel blockade, that is, they will slow the sinus rhythm, prolong the PR interval, and they do not have effect on the QRS interval. In this you can see the effect on effective refractory period is there, and also we can see the effect in this phase also. Basically they affect the calcium channels which are active during the plateau phase or the phase 2. These drugs, they are used for prevention of paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, reduced ventricular rate in atrial fibrillation. So verapamil is helpful in these conditions. There are some miscellaneous drugs also, the compounds whose actions don't fit the standard 4 classes, like for paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, adenosine and digoxin are effective. For AV block, sympathomimetics like isopranaline, anticholinergics like atropine. Digitalis is used in atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, and paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia to control the ventricular rate. Adenosine is drug of choice for paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. Adenosine, this is endogenously produced, important chemical mediator, but it has a very short half-life of just 20 to 30 seconds, and it is used for termination of supraventricular tachycardia. From this ECG, you can see the conversion of supraventricular tachycardia into the sinus rhythm. Now we have studied about the antiarrhythmic drugs, the classes 1 to 4. So the choice and the use of antiarrhythmic drugs, how to use them correctly. Many a times the mere detection of arrhythmias does not necessitate treatment. Many of the normal individuals, they have a little bit of arrhythmia once or in their lifetime, or normally also, physiologically also, but mere detection does not necessitate treatment. The asymptomatic arrhythmias and those which do not jeopardize the hemodynamics, that is like most atrial extrasystole or occasional ventricular extrasystole, first degree AV block, bundle branch block, etc. in otherwise normal heart, they do not require antiarrhythmic treatment. Most often reassurance is enough. If a patient is particularly disturbed by atrial extrasystoles, propranolol is the best option. Vigorous therapy with the antiarrhythmics is indicated when the arrhythmias are life-threatening, like sustained ventricular tachycardia, torsades de pointes, or ventricular fibrillation. When arrhythmia is causing hypotension, breathlessness, activity limitation, or the cardiac failure. When the palpitation is marked, for example in paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, sustained ventricular tachycardia, atrial fibrillation, torsades de pointes. When simple arrhythmia may lead to more serious ones, that is after myocardial infarction. So vigorous therapy is indicated when the arrhythmias are life-threatening, they are causing signs and symptoms, the palpitation is marked, or when the simple arrhythmias can lead to the more severe ones. Only in such situations, vigorous therapy with antiarrhythmic drugs is indicated. The selection of a particular antiarrhythmic drug in a patient depends upon the ECG diagnosis, possible mechanism underlying arrhythmias, the mechanism of action, and the range of antiarrhythmic activity of drug, the pharmacokinetic profile of drug, the hemodynamic effects of the drug. So these have to be considered before selecting a particular antiarrhythmic drugs for a particular patient. The aim of the treatment is to improve the cardiovascular function either by restoring the sinus rhythm, or by controlling the ventricular rate, or by conversion to a more desirable pattern of electrical and mechanical activity. So ultimately we want to improve the cardiovascular function. So in this slide, in this table, the drugs of first choice are tabulated and the second choice also. In atrial arrhythmia like atrial flutter, propranolol class 2 drugs and class 4 verapamil, they are drugs of choice. Digoxin is the drug of second choice for this particular type of arrhythmia. In atrial fibrillation, propranolol and amiodarone, in addition, anticoagulant therapy are preferred over dofetilide. In supraventricular tachycardia, in AV nodal re-entry, propranolol and verapamil, they are preferred over digoxin. In acute supraventricular tachycardia, adenosine is the drug of choice and verapamil is the second choice. In acute ventricular tachycardia, lignocaine and amiodarone, they are preferred. In ventricular fibrillation, amiodarone and adrenaline, they are preferred over lignocaine. There are certain drugs which are used for whether the arrhythmias or other drugs, they can prolong the QT interval. So we have to be careful while using these particular drugs. Some of them have been banned because of this reason also. The antiarrhythmic drugs like quinidine, procainide, disopyramide, propafenone, amiodarone, they can prolong the QT interval. Antimalarial drugs like quinine, mefloquine, artemisinin, halofentine. Antibacterials like sparfloxacin, moxifloxacin. Moxifloxacin was once banned because of this reason. Antihistaminics, terfenadine and estomizole. Antidepressants like amitriptyline and other tricyclic antidepressants. Antipsychotics like thioridazone, pimozide, aripiprazole, ziprasidone. Prokinetic drugs like cisapride. Cisapride is also a banned drug, and this is one of the reasons, QT prolongation. So whenever we use these drugs for other conditions, we have to be careful for their propensity to prolong the QT interval. We can always use the alternate and the safer drugs. The recent advances, some novel ion channel blockers like dronedarone, celiviron, vernaclin, ranolazine, non-ion channel blockers such as gap junction modulators like rotigaptide, the drugs which antagonize the angiotensin system, ACE inhibitors, angiotensin II receptor blockers, they can also be used for arrhythmias in particular situations. That's all for today. But before stopping this class, you have to be careful that many antiarrhythmic drugs, they themselves produce arrhythmias. So you have to be always on your toes to check them and treat them accordingly. That is, you are not supposed to increase the dose of antiarrhythmic drugs, but you always have to think that this non-resolving arrhythmias or production of newer arrhythmias can be the pro-arrhythmic effect of this particular drug also. When you remember these antiarrhythmic drugs along with their action on the cardiac action potentials, you will be able to remember the basic concepts in a simpler and more clearer manner. That's all for today. Thank you.